yeah, but, we have a lot of the season left, and we're little things here and there in each game that we know we're going to get corrected and we're going to be in a good spot. And like I said, we're excited Thursday night to go show what we can do and get going back in the win column.
You are what your record is, and so everybody has to eat that and wear that. While we think we're better than that, it's an opportunity for us to see, so it's a test.
I'm ready. We're ready. Let's go. You're going to tear us down. Come tear us down. That's backs against the wall. What are we going to do? I guess we're going to go see.
Okay, Philly seems confident despite a disappointing 1-2 start to the season. The Eagles head to Green Bay on Thursday Night Football to face Aaron Rodgers. Ryan Clark, good to have you back with us. Max Kellerman, how much is Wentz to blame for the Eagles' struggles?
I got to give him a lot of blame. If it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes, Wentz to me would be that guy. He has that much ability.
Pennsylvania.
Right? He can do things other guys just can't do, and he's tough as nails. Like, I was at the Rams game where his whole leg came off, and he's 3 more plays after that he's completing plays. He's tough. And by the way, you never hear something like he's a bad guy. He doesn't work hard. He doesn't want to. He wants to do all the right things. But look at the way the team functions. The team, all phases of the game. When he's the quarterback versus Foles.
So you're saying it's a leadership issue, not a talent issue?
Listen, it may be unfair because Foles may have some extra special pixie dust that other normal dudes don't have, right? But just look, they were flat last year. Stephen A. brought it up, 5-6 under Wentz. They made a run into the playoffs. They won a game at Soldier Field against one of the teams a lot of people were picking to win the Super Bowl. Then they went to another place where it's impossible to win, lost by 1 score, and almost pulled that off. And that was in a Super Bowl title defense where Nick Foles won the MVP the year before. Why is it suddenly that we have firefighters or Good Samaritans making jokes about Aguilar on social media, right? Yeah. Why are receivers dropping passes? Why is the offensive line, to me, it looks like sometimes giving up on the play? Like, what is this all about? Whatever it is, Carson Wentz has to figure out a way to get guys to want to play with him and for him differently than he is now. He's got to evolve as a leader.
I'm looking at Peterson. I'm looking at the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles. We talk about Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, guess what? If we're going to rave about the fact that Nick Foles won a Super Bowl and Carson Wentz didn't because he was injured, well, who was the head coach at that time? How are you calling plays? How ready are you having your personnel? Deshaun Jackson wasn't dropping passes. Nelson Aguilar has dropped some passes. Alshon Jeffrey's been hurt. You look at this kid Whiteside. We're bringing him up. You drop passes, like you pointed out during the commercial. 2 dropped passes will give you 2 victories if you're the Philadelphia Eagles. That's what it came down to. So I'm looking at it from that perspective, and I'm saying, excuse me, I got to look at the head coach of this franchise. If you're going to talk to me about guys not blocking, not doing their job, I'm not looking at Carson Wentz. What possible excuse can you have if you stand around and you're not blocking and that's your job? You're going to blame the quarterback for that? This ain't any given Sunday with Jamie Foxx and LL and those boys. This is real-life football. This is a national football league. Will it beam? I keep the lady screaming and on my fans. Underrated. You know what I'm saying? I mean, come on now. I mean, this ain't that. This is real life football. And so when I look at it from that perspective, I'm just looking at the head coach. You're a Super Bowl championship coach. You've got the cachet, and to really, really make sure that your influence is felt. Yeah. That's what I'm looking at for the Philadelphia Eagles right now. And they don't have much of a running game, by the way.
What I said when I would watch Doug Peterson and this team function without Carson Wentz, it seemed like everyone stepped their game up when it came to Nick Foles. And what I mean by that, I think the defense felt like it had to play better. Doug Peterson called plays in a way that really benefited the things that Nick Foles does well. Well, Carson Wentz does everything well. And I do believe sometimes you can fall into, I want to let this guy work. I want to let Carson Wentz go out and win games. And I can tell you why it looks like linemen aren't blocking sometimes. It's because Carson Wentz won't let a play die.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily that that's a bad thing. But
we blocked for you for 12 straight seconds. Can you get rid of the football?
Linemen have a clock in their head. And then you look at Nelson Aguilar or Thega Whiteside dropping balls to win games. Those were 2 perfectly thrown footballs. Those were footballs as professional athletes and professional wide receivers you have to catch. Carson Wentz does get some of the blame for things that are going on, but I'm not going to blame him when another man drops the ball. I'm not going to blame him when you're not making the defensive stops that you need to make when you're playing against the Detroit Lions, when you let Agnew go for 102 yards on special teams plays. Those things aren't Carson Wentz's fault.
Can you admit this? The effort versus Detroit, the sample size of guys or the team not making plays or executing for Carson Wentz is growing. If you look at the Detroit game just now, it reminded me of the Minnesota and the Carolina home losses with Wentz from early last year. It had the same feeling of a group of guys, both sides of the ball, not juiced to play. And the flip switch, like it flipped as soon as Foles got on there. They didn't know Nick Foles there anymore. What is it like? At the very least, the sample size is growing of this team not playing for him.
Well, I'm going to say this about Nick Foles, and we were speaking of this pixie dust or this magical potion he may have when he's on the team. It don't work everywhere. Right, we've seen him not succeed in Philly before with Chip Kelly after having going 27-2 touchdown to interception ratio. We've seen him with the Rams and it not working. So it's not necessarily that Nick Foles did something special for this team to make him play. And after being a guy in a locker room, we're going to say with a quarterback who didn't necessarily give you all the feels all the time, I watch dudes go out and flat out ball and win championships. And so it's not Carson Wentz's job to get grown men to go out and do their job well.
Exactly.
He's playing hard. All the things you said are true. He gives effort. He works hard. He makes plays.
Tough as nails.
It's incumbent on the rest of the Philadelphia Eagles to step their game up. And I'm not saying they got a ball all the time, right, or have this amazing energy. But when it's cover two and Keanu Neal doesn't get on the top of the half and it hits you right in your hand, Nelson Aguilar, you got to catch it. Right? When it's a deep post on fourth down late in the game where you can beat the Detroit
babies.
That's fine philosophically. You could say, look,
you're like, out the window in Philly.
Yeah. Right, but that's the point. I mean, listen, that Eagles fan is really saying, look, in Philadelphia, that ball is like a baby out of a burning building. You better hold it. Means the most to us.
No, or he's saying he's still thinking about the game.
No,
even
of course, but why? But that's the same thing.
Building.
Those two things mean the same thing to the Philadelphia fans. What I'm saying is X's and O's and all the things you say about Wentz, true. And Stephen A. a lot of times bring this up. That's a grown man, professional athlete. They're responsible. You can stand by that, or you can try to figure out what's going on. Why is it that they're doing this with Wentz, but they didn't with another guy?
Well,
like,
lots of
what is up
on
with the
that
effort?
team too. We have to say that there were.
I just think when you watch him week one in the second half against Washington, Deshaun Jackson gets behind that defense 2 times. There was no way we ever thought to ourselves he's going to drop that ball. And part of why many people picked this team to contend to win the NFC was because of what they would look at the outside receiver. It wasn't supposed to be Mac Hollins and Ortega-Whiteside to be the 2 guys that he would be looking to throw the ball deep down the
O-line was
field.
supposed to be there, right there with the Cowboys.
Right, and so there's been some different things. You look at Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders as running backs. Miles Sanders shows you a little flash, but he puts the ball on the ground 2 times last week. And so there's a lot of things going on with this team that has to be fixed. Carson Wentz can get better, but he has made the necessary plays from his position and what he controls to win. And he's not the reason this team is 1-2.
And Aguilar should start catching babies. We don't have that video, but I do have this surprise for you. Brian, I don't know if you saw this, but we were talking about this all morning. It's a facial recognition video. Can we please play this?
It's hilarious.
Okay, do you know what's happening here? So see this woman, she's with her man. You know, she's trying to get after him. It looks like maybe she's trying to fight him, No, she's trying to get his face on facial
like Day-Day.
recognition to open his phone. How hilarious.
That has to be fake, though, y'all. Like
It's not.
That's
Somebody
not
else
real
filmed that. Somebody else filmed that. Seriously.
No,
Somebody filmed
they set that up. There is no way.
He was in the Matrix.
Much. If you're going through all of that,
You wrong.
It don't matter.
You wrong.
I mean, that kind of effort.
You wrong.
To make sure she doesn't get into your phone, you guilty already.
You're going to be
I know-
sleeping
by
with
the
the
way,
lights on now.
You can't win.
That's true.
You still got to
How
fight,
many
though.
people out there would let someone just open up their phone?
Nobody.
I would.
Nobody.
I 100% would. You could go through it right now.
I wouldn't, but I will say this. Max Kellerman, the wife, wants to open the phone.
You got to let her do it.
Of course, got to hand it over.
There you go. That's all I'm saying. Don't act like you
I'm gonna
don't
say
know.
this, though.
I mean,
Hey,
don't act like you don't know. You wouldn't
was elusive, though.
That's right.
My dog was elusive.
That's
He wasn't
Keanu
playing.
Reeves from The Matrix.
Ron Clark.
He wasn't playing. He in trouble.
The wife want to open the phone.
Yeah, he in trouble.
The wife, you going through all of that?
Nah, you got to let it happen.
You got to let it happen.
You got to let it happen.
You got to let it
man.
happen.
But
now, I'll question.
I mean, or you just have each other's codes.
at some point, though.
Just accept
No,
codes.
no.
Yeah,
Why?
Yeah.
Who
No,
cares?
Definitely no code.
No.
I don't
But this
care.
right here, though.
What if it's an
I can't.
emergency?
He needs a mask for this
Hey,
conversation.
Hold on. I have one question. What if the house is burning down or something, and there just no one can find the phone, and they need your phone? They're not going to know the code. What
You
are
got to
they
let it
going
burn
to do?
down?
Case of emergencies here. Sure, you got a phone.
Stephen A. You so
Y'all are
funny, man.
He got a phone. He got a phone. On an emergency situation.
You guys are
You understand? But it ain't gonna be just leisurely. You just looking through your phone. You
There
know?
was a Seinfeld about this issue.
She can't get on your Safari?
Nah.
What if she got to Google something, Stephen A?
Go ahead. You know, don't you have a phone? That's what you have a phone.
All right. Stephen A will go right to the store and buy another one. All right, Jason Garrett is in his last year of his deal as Cowboys head coach, and he's been tight-lipped about any extension. The Cowboys are 3-0 and lead the NFC East. It's all focused now. How much credit do you give Jason Garrett for Cowboys' hot start, Max?
0.
Oh.
Nothing.
Okay.
The
Changed your
defense.
name?
Huh?
You changed your name?
What you know?
I thought she said Max.
I
Oh,
did.
I'm used to that
You
around
really
here.
did
Don't worry
that,
about
huh?
it.
No, I didn't.
He was just feeling like real guilty. Like, yeah.
I swear,
Just go.
I didn't hear. I just went. 0.
He's feeling a little nervous.
The answer's 0. The defense, we know what they were from last year. Offensively, Kellen Moore is doing his thing. He's changed from what Scott Linehan was doing. End of discussion. Jason Garrett is a cheerleader. He's a glorified dude on behalf of Jerry Jones, who Jerry Jones was trying to decide whether or not I should give you a contract extension or not. Please.
He's kept the ship pretty steady most often. He deserves some credit for that. But Garrett has an overly conservative offensive philosophy. You see that especially. It's from last year. There was a play. They have Ezekiel Elliott to draft him 4th overall. He exceeds expectations. They're like around midfield. It's a 4th and 1, and they punt.
Texans.
Okay, I'm done with you, Garrett. Like, you do that, I'm done. But Kellen Moore has installed a much more dynamic offense. Dak is making all the plays. I second what Stephen A. said. It's Kellen Moore more than anything.
I said this morning in talking about Jason Garrett. When you have a large sample size of a guy and then something immediately changes, you never give him the credit because you say, okay, it has to be the change that they're made. You can look at LSU right now and what they're doing offensively. You bring in Joe Brady, and he's getting the credit over Coach Orgeron. I'll say this. If you're Jason Garrett, you have to be on board with the move from Scott Linehan to Kellen Moore. And being on board with that move and now saying, you know what, I also believe in Dak in a way where I'm going to allow Kellen to call plays that push the ball down the field. We look at Freddie Kitchens and we look at the situation in Cleveland and we want to give him some blame when Todd Monken is now the new offensive coordinator. But nobody's speaking of Todd Monken. It's Freddie Kitchens, Freddie Kitchens, Freddie Kitchens.
Me about Monken right away.
So we can't have it both ways and say, okay, Jason Garrett doesn't have anything to do with this. In looking at what Jerry Jones is saying, I won't speak about Jason Garrett's contract, I think it's because he has a certain level of success in mind that they have to reach in order for him to be the coach.
How many coaches would be doing a much worse job with this Cowboys roster right now?
I don't know if any. I don't know of any competent coach who would be, but I think that
we can say Jason Garrett's a mostly competent coach.
I think that does speak to his experience, his understanding about what he knows and doesn't know, and also the way that he's able, because what he has done is seem to rise up in important moments of his career, not necessarily the organization or the team. In the sense of 2014, he needed to come through with a great year, and he did that. Right, we now are in 2019. It seems to be that he has to come up with a great year in order to keep his job, and they're starting out 3-0, and I would think are the favorites to win the NFC. So he's at least
Garrett going to have the job next year?
Yes.
But Max,
he's got the best O-line in the game. He's got the best linebacking core. He's got ends who can pressure you. He's got guys who can cover. He's got a lead wide out, a great running back.
When we were talking about the quarterback.